Hello TT, welcome to another tutorial. On today's tutorial we'll be talking about plagiarism. Basically we'll be talking about the what is plagiarism, defining it, talking about the consequences, the how one can avoid plagiarism and the different forms of plagiarism that is. So let's get started. What is plagiarism? What comes to your mind when someone says plagiarism? Basically plagiarism is the stealing of someone else's work, theories, ideas and writing them as your own. What do I mean by that is you not being able to cite someone else's work that you have used, whether it being from the internet, whether it being from a book, whether it being from the newspaper, a magazine. If you've used someone else's ideas, thoughts, theories, you need to be able to reference them. Otherwise, you are basically stealing someone else's intellectual thinking. What do I mean by that? Is that you are basically saying, someone else's thinking is your thinking, and which is not always the case. You might have similar thinking to somebody else's, but if you did use their work, you need to give them credit. You need to reference them properly. You need to be able to say, I got this from this source, and referencing is important, but as we've talked about it in the first tutorial about referencing, but yes, let's go on. So what are the consequences of plagiarism? The Northwest University has zero tolerance of plagiarism. You might find yourself even obtaining a 0% for an assignment which you have plagiarized. Basically, when a lecturer is able to depict that this is someone else's work, this is not your work, and he sees that he can give you a mark, it can even go to a point that you have a disciplinary hearing and getting expelled from the university because you have committed a crime. You have stolen something and said it's yours and it was not yours. So basically plagiarism, it is a crime and it has severe consequences. So when you plagiarize, when you use someone else's work, make sure that you reference. But let's talk about how you can avoid plagiarism. You need to always cite a source. If you took something from a book, if you took something from a journal, if you took something from a newspaper, if you took something from the internet, you need to always reference it, regardless of if the person is alive, if the person is nowhere to be found, if the person disappeared. End of the day is it was written by that person, and you need to to reference, to cite that individual, because it is their work, it is their ideas, it is their thoughts, everything you've taken from the internet, whether it being a picture, whether it being a graph, whether it being phrase, whether you have translated something from English into Afrikaans, from Afrikaans into English, from Spanish, Russian, whether you have translated it, it's not your thought. You just translated it to English. You've just translated it to a different language. So that doesn't make it yours. It just makes you the translator. So you need to always give credit where it's due. It's not your work, and you need to always acknowledge your sources, regardless of what the circumstance is. Always give regards to your sources, because if not, there are consequences that come with not giving credit to where it's due. So different types of plagiarism. First, outright copying. This is when you write everything word for word from a source, and you're not directly quoting the source. You are basically saying, this is me, I said this. Now, this is the most common type of plagiarism, where individuals plagiarize and work from the internet thinking it cannot be discovered. Well, eventually it could, because thanks to the internet now, there are apps like Turnitin where lecturers are able to see the amount of plagiarism that has been done in an assignment. So the second type of plagiarism is paraphrasing. I believe this was made easy by a tool called the paraphrasing tool that most students use now, and students would summarize someone else's work, or they would even use synonyms for someone else's work, and not cite them, which is wrong, because that's not your idea. That is not your theory. That is not your thinking. You took that from someone else's else's book, journal, page, article. So you need to credit them. Whether you've put it in your own words, it doesn't make it yours. You have shown understanding, yes, and you've put it in your own words, but that still doesn't make it yours. So you need to always cite your work, whether it's by paraphrase and outright copying. You need to always directly quote it because you're taking it word for word, right? So stealing of an apt term, when you read something and it's fancy word and then you take the term and you put it in your assignment, that's also plagiarism because you steal a phrase from someone else's. That's not your phrase. You took it somewhere else. No matter how fancy it is, no matter how it gels in your assignment, it's still plagiarism. So you need to cite it. You need to cite that term, whether it's something that's common knowledge, but wherever you got it from, you need to always cite your work. Cite a term, I mean. The other form of plagiarism is patchwork plagiarism. Oh my god. So basically, patchwork plagiarism, it's when you use other ideas. In this case, those ideas are blending in with your assignment, everything, that thing that was said by Karl Marx and your assignment is just, it's the right thing. It blends in, it goes with the assignment. But that is wrong. You need to reference that author. No matter how much it gels in, no matter how much it flows, the fact that you use someone else's work, you need to be able to reference that individual because it's still not your work. There's nothing wrong with referencing. People would think that it shows that they're clever. Actually, referencing does give you credit even more than just flowing your own ideas. So in terms of patchwork plagiarism, the plagiarizer uses someone else's work here and there, the first two lines, the last two lines, but those first two lines reference them, the last two lines cite them as well, and then you have something that works. Patchwork patchwork can always also be taking someone else's work, someone else's work, someone else's work, and someone else's work, and putting them together, and saying it's one thing, it's your thing, and not giving credit to those people, scholars, which you have used their work and you have credited them here and there. So let's sum up everything we've done today. So firstly, plagiarism. What is about? Stealing someone else's work without not being to references. Consequences. There are severe consequences of plagiarism. As we've stated, you can get expelled from the university just by plagiarizing. Avoid plagiarism, always cite the source. No matter what, always cite the source. Different types of plagiarism. There's patchwork plagiarism, paraphrasing, outright copying, and stealing of an apt term. So thank you for your time, and till next time, bye! Happy studying!